will. Ours is.
All right, here we go.
Where's Corinne?
Oh, she's over there playing the phone.
She's waiting for hugs. She needs some hugs.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're at the Nassau Library, and Glendora is doing a presentation on the S.S.Glendora and Satellite 6. And these are all Glendora's papers.
Oh, yeah. Keep your head warm.
That's for you, Wayne.
Oh, what's in mine?
Bill?
I have my
Bill
piece
here.
of cookie.
Yes, Bill's here, but I'm Corinne. Hey, baby.
I'll get drunk out of piece of today.
Thank you very much. Here's your fedora.
I'll give it up if someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Gonna have a live podcast, are we?
Hi, Glendora.
Well, we've got a few things. I've got like a little
How are you?
slideshow on my phone.
Yeah, Greg, we just saw, I don't know what channel, maybe it's
What color you think I am
one of the
today?
Channel 6 channels,
Commercial.
speaking about video games.
Oh, yeah, it's all a
Yeah,
commercial.
and then
Remember, it goes
you must have been someplace. You gotta get over here and do your job.
Yeah, you heard that,
Do you
yeah.
know the program
That's why I
starts
put that out.
at 6:30? Okay, I'm just making sure that you all
No,
know
over
the thing
here.
is starting at 6,
right here.
and then you'd have to wait.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
so social.
Glendora's clippings, newspaper clippings,
Where's got the worm?
her appearances.
Oh, I'm so glad.
22, dear.
22.
This is yours to keep. As a memento of our nice trip.
All right.
Oh, yeah, is this,
Clark, how are you
Yeah.
feeling?
is this the AIC? When they-
Yeah.
Oh, great. Had to watch our grandchild.
Yeah.
make it.
So did you call
Where's
me
your
up on the
hat?
phone
You better
to
put your
tell
hat
me
in.
about this?
Where's my what? Hat.
Wasn't her
Oh,
voice.
did it fall over? Is it behind me, folks?
Yeah.
I don't see it.
Oh, there it is.
Right here.
Oh,
I'm right here, Glendora.
How you doing, Greg?
Oh,
Oh,
thank
hi,
you.
how you doing? So, hey,
How are
Wayne.
you?
so-
That's what Nichols.
Clark? I'm Bill, thank you.
This is the director of our library, Tracey Clague. Hi.
Okay.
Hi,
He's a
Tracy.
Pittsfield
Nice to
people.
meet you.
Are you Wayne?
Collins.
Oh, nice to meet you. Yes, that's wonderful. We've got Kurt's gonna read it tonight.
But
Yeah.
I sent it to 35 Elm Street.
Over in,
Was the
Yes.
address I was given. Was
That was well. That's my address.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought
So
it was
that's
the library. That's what we were
that's
looking
fine.
for tonight.
yeah. It got here. It got here.
Me, Bill.
Corinne.
I'm Clark.
I'm Pat.
Wait,
That's
Wayne,
Pat. This is
Wayne.
Pat.
Hey, I have something to say. Who, Corinne? Yes, Corinne has something to say. Those two aren't wearing a hat, Glendora.
Oh,
Where
I
are
have to
they
get one.
from?
So.
If you run out of hats, I'll.
Oh, I gotta get one. So.
We have
And
another
this
another
is
crate out.
Gregory. Gregory is Glendora's assistant.
Yeah, you
And
can
he's
say that.
a really
Gregory,
great
are you
help.
wearing a hat?
No, not yet there, but no, I'm kind of on the, I need a hat, so.
Good one, Greg.
Hey, that's the one you were wearing at the AIC thing.
And you too, I think.
Yeah, I need a hat, so.
Nobody gets out of wearing a hat.
What can I?
Oh, I have.
All right,
Okay.
what about you?
Alright, so.
What hat you wearing?
Welcome,
I have
welcome,
to go
welcome
upstairs.
aboard the
I
ship
can't have a hat
here,
on
so.
right now.
I remember when she was advertising.
Yes, this is amazing. This is all
Five
amazing
or
stuff.
six.
555.
I'd love to see it, but.
Oh, nice.
Oh, Wayne, can you tell him the joke about the, what the mother said about the service, and what the daddy said about it?
Well, the mother said, that church service, the choir was terrible. They were singing all off key. The father said, yes, and the sermon was so long-winded. And the little girl said, well, it was a good show for a dime.
Huh.
Anybody got any other jokes?
Oh, this is-
What do you consider a reasonable salary for work in the years 1955 to 1962? What were people making?
Oh, I remember making 50 cents an hour.
50 cents an hour?
In pharmacy, pharmacy in Pittsfield.
And how much was that a week?
Well, I was a student in high school then.
$20 a week.
Yeah. I did work.
What were-
Delivered newspapers, did everything, you know.
What would you say was an average salary? In
Oh,
those
yeah,
years?
that's right. I'm trying to think of what my father, he was managed a liquor drugstore restaurant. I don't know. I probably didn't even know how much they got.
$100 a week, was that considered a lot?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that was
good.
considered a lot?
Yes,
Really?
yes.
My father worked at the AP, made $45 a week. 45 a week.
During
Yeah.
that,
And Wayne, your mother worked at General Electric. What did she make a week?
Well, this
Wayne's
was,
there.
I'm here, and this was 1935, she got $12 a week.
35?
$12 a week in 1935.
What did she make 55 to 60? Two.
She was not working outside of the home then.
What do you think it was then?
Wasn't it, I think the minimum wage was something like $1.25 an hour, something like that.
That's the way to find out.
Yeah. I have no idea, I was only 5 years old, so.
Clark, can you remember anything about that? The 55 to 60?
I was only 5 years old.
Made
I
like,
think in the late sixties, I think I made like $1.75 an hour.
brought home like $100 a
Delivering oil?
Oh, what, how much do you make?
How much did you make?
What was the question?
When you delivered oil?
Oh, 1967,
Uh-huh. How much?
$1.75, I think an hour.
How much a week?
Whatever, times 40.
In other words, less than 80.
I got paid by the hour, so as many hours as I
Would
worked.
be about 60.
I was in high school, so just,
About 60 a week? About 60 a week?
thereabouts, if I worked 40 hours, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I have another question for you. Now, this is not a joke, okay? It's a thing I wonder about. How come doctors never go to the funerals of their patients?
well, I wouldn't say never, but because they're seeing their patients where they work. But there's some doctors that attend funerals of their patients.
Well, that seems strange to me because they certainly have a friendship basis.
Yeah,
They're friends with each other.
I know my grandmother went to the funeral for her doctor.
yeah.
So what's the news over there in Pittsfield, folks?
Well, bad for the public access and with the FCC and those chargebacks from the cable company. We don't know what's gonna happen there. We just took over, radio station, WTBR, that was, at the new, Taconic High School. There was a new, and they didn't make a provision for keeping the radio station. So we squeezed it into PCTV.
Oh my goodness, you're going to have to keep it on the air?
Yeah, yeah.
Explain to the folks.
Yeah, but it's, now you're talking about a different set of rules with the FCC. So we have a program, and the license is still with the city, the school department, even though we're the managers of it. But there's a lot of people showed up who had, since early 1970s, worked on that radio station, volunteer did the program. So anyway, we squeezed it in, and it started the end of December. It took 6 months for, right now it's a low power station, but it'll be, as soon as the FCC and things are done.
Boy, that's quite an undertaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow. Where are they going to put the facilities?
well, we squeeze it in to our Pittsfield Community Television.
Yeah, one of
In the front room.
offices.
We're right where the people go into Spectrum, they're in the other rest of the building to pay their bills.
Yeah.
We have a window and there's a radio station. Because people get mixed up thinking we're Spectrum, they don't realize this,
And what's new in the Christian Science Church over there?
Everything good.
What? And what's new with the Christian Center?
I don't know.
What do
We don't go there.
Oh,
Contact.
yeah.
Is that the Christian Center?
Yeah.
Emergency services, I've done a couple of programs with the Red Cross and also the Salvation Army. So they go out when there's a fire and help people, and also the firefighters. But the Christian Center organized all the other entities, because once those 2 or 3 days where they need more than that, they can't. They might stay in a motel for a few days. So the Christian Center's really good.
Because they do.
And did you get there's a new, I left a message, there's a new vegan restaurant on Lacona Street.
She's been
Took
there.
over, did you, yeah, we've been there.
Carnoots was it?
So in good weather, you
It
might.
used to be
Adrian.
Adrian's.
Adrian's,
Used to be Adrian's.
Glendora has been there to that vegan restaurant.
How is your new district
She's
attorney
been there?
doing?
Oh, I didn't.
Haven't been arrested lately, so I don't really know.
We've had her on, done about 4 programs, helped others a piece of the day she's done.
Have you? And what's the story on the carousel?
We're not sure, we're volunteers
On the what?
on the carousel.
The
We're
carousel.
not, us
Uh,
volunteers that, we don't know.
Not looking very good.
It isn't?
No.
No, it's very down in popularity.
What do you
It only
think will-
ran 1 day a week last year.
And what do you think will happen to it, hon?
I know, Jim Schulman there was a convention, a national convention in Connecticut. What was that, the fall? Yeah, September.
No, September,
Because we were
October.
working on a fesh, Irish step dancers down the road. And he brought busloads of people from there to see it, but I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening.
The New York State Museum has a carousel on the 4th floor.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't the 4th floor a precarious place for a carousel?
I don't know, it was, we went,
Oh, do they operate it as a public,
yeah.
yeah.
we
Oh,
can
okay.
go there.
It's not as pretty as the one in Pittsfield,
No,
they say.
That's not a bad idea to have it there, if people go to the museum, which I've never been to, but I've heard it's quite the museum to go to.
Tell me again who's here, everybody. Start again.
Bill Banker.
Corinne Banker.
Clark Nichols.
Pat Gormalley.
Greg Washburn.
That's pretty good, isn't it? We're all together again. That's a wonderful thing, you know it, folks? For us all to be together again. That's probably a very rare thing.
That's a nice picture from AIC,
Yeah,
with all the people there.
did somebody close it up? Did some,
No, I have it right here. I'm
does it
reading.
open up?
Yeah,
Oh, this is not a thing.
higher education.
Yeah, could you open it to page 22? The little boy was saying his prayer, and he says, "Our Father who does art in heaven, Harold is his name." Yeah, isn't that a terrific picture? Now, let's see. Clark remembers the S.S.Glendora, I know that for sure. Corinne, you weren't here, were you?
My name's Corinne, and no,
Corinne, 1955 to 1962.
I was born in 53. So, yeah.
I know you
Catch it
weren't
on
here.
repeats.
And Pat, where were you?
Pat, I moved to Pittsfield we were in various parts of the country, 1961.
Yeah.
So what was the S.S.Glendora?
Say again, honey?
So what was the S.S.Glendora?
Oh, what was it? Well, honey, it was a day when television really amounted to something. You just had to live in that period to realize what an experience live television was.
Are we gonna see anything? What dear? Are we gonna see one of those shows?
Honey, they didn't have any tape.
No?
It didn't come in until '62. But it was the thing, you know, you heard of Camelot? You know,
Yeah.
once there was a Camelot. Once there was a thing called live television. When people were clean and friendly and laughed a lot and everything was spontaneous. And that day has gone. Television isn't like that anymore. Television was so popular then that the water companies used to have a problem because everybody went up and went to the bathroom at the same time during the commercial.
That's true.
But on your
The
show,
municipal water authorities really had a problem with it.
So how long did your show go for? Half an hour, hour?
The 15 minutes, the S.S.Glendora, and then the Glendora Satellite 6 went 45 minutes.
What was the second one you just mentioned?
S.S.Glendora.
No, then you mentioned something else.
Satellite 6.
Oh, the first one was, oh, excuse me, the second was Glendora Satellite 6.
Okay.
That was the spaceship.
Oh.
Why don't you folks take a look at the
One
displays?
was
Yeah.
a ship, I guess.
So-
and
Yeah, why don't you go down and
One
look
was
at
a
the
spaceship.
displays?
I only have a vague recollection.
When you started
Oh,
Remember
at
these
Freddie
are
Freihoffer
from-
more than.
Glendora, you started at Bank Row in Pittsfield?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
started at Bank
yeah.
Pittsfield.
We were trying to
And
picture
that
that.
was Glendora and her picture party.
Yeah,
And they all had uniforms.
So that was the predecessor to Star Trek then?
yes, yes.
Yeah, get down and look at the displays, folks.
Then, when did you go to GE Channel 6?
In the summer of 1955.
Wow.
Bring your children to Wallace's Toy Shop.
What did,
Glendora demonstrate.
what did she say to me, folks?
Oh, she's reading the newspaper, reading the newspaper of your personal appearances there?
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And there was Bill
Yes?
and his wife. There was an article about it and great praise in the Christian Science Monitor in Boston.
Wow.
And that article, Gregory, could you show that article to?
Oh, it's right in the binder at the end of the tables down there, right, the one right at the end of the
And the
table.
Boston Globe wrote about it, and the Boston Herald Traveler. Those papers don't live any longer, do they?
No.
And the Boston Herald
So,
and the Boston Advertiser.
But the Monitor does.
so I,
Oh, yeah, the Monitor isn't in paper anymore.
Well, they have a weekly magazine and then they have also an online daily,
Yeah, an online daily.
but a weekly magazine that you can get.
How much is a Pittsfield Eagle cost now every day?
oh yeah, it's kind of, I think it's marked $1.25 for the daily and maybe double that for the Sunday. But we're longtime subscribers and, I pointed out to them, you're telling people they have a year, and I said, I used to deliver the Eagle, and you have a year subscription, and then suddenly they said, oh, there's some,
The letters from the store.
they send you a bill in May instead of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I.
Nobody keeps track.
So I always went down there and complained. I said, how can you be, because of the
Is this
supplements
Bob
is an extra
Holton's
charge.
Glendora?
I said, well, I don't wanna, I canceled the supplements. Well, they're not gonna cancel, they're gonna still deliver it to us. Yeah, but now, they're up around,
Pictures of
it depends, they were given specials, they were up around $400 for a year subscription.
Good Lord, who can afford
Yeah,
that?
but, so, I canceled
I
for
love
1
that
month,
store.
a couple of years back, because they kept sending me a bill early.
Some
And
of that
I
stuff will
canceled,
come back.
and the very next week, there's, instead of $350, they were
always wanted train
they
set.
sent me, there's a special, you can get it for $177. So I did that. I said, well, but I don't want those supplements. I want, you put it down there, I'm not paying, getting a bill 4 months ahead of time, you know.
Oh, this
So isn't
looks
that
like
funny?
Felix the
They
cat.
I was willing to pay 200 something, and they lost money. I point out, well, you should be more consistent.
How much was it when you were delivering? How much a week?
Jeez,
Chat
really,
with Glendora.
I think 25 cents or something.
Yeah, that's what I think, yeah, 25 cents.
And then we had to collect ourselves for the,
Yeah.
the customers.
Yeah.
And there's Bugs Bunny. A chat with Glendora. Can you sing that song for us?
Yeah, Wayne, where's
Right here.
my dear? Please sing it,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yes,
Please
I'm
sing it.
here.
Oh wait, now I gotta get that. So.
With Glendora, a show for living right. A chat with Glendora makes your day so bright. Words of inspiration, jokes to make you smile. Come relax and chat with Glendora for a while.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Now Wayne wrote that song. He did the lyrics,
We
he
helped
did
him
the
produce
music,
it, but
and he did the piano playing, and he sang it, and the Bankers did the set, made the set, and the Bankers did the video.
Yes, and we made him do it exactly correctly, because he had a lot of takes.
11 takes to be exact.
11
11
takes.
I don't think that's a lot.
No. He did really good.
I don't think that's a lot at all. And I thought every one of them was good. In fact, you asked me to pick the best one. I couldn't. I thought they were all good.
Satellite 6 show was mostly cartoons, and she would talk in between the cartoons.
I like the
Leave the camera
cartoons.
going there, I guess. Okay.
Where were you in Boston?
Say again, hon?
We're in Boston, what,
WBZ TV.
oh, yes.
That dominated New England.
Yeah, that's,
Westinghouse,
that's
Channel
the
4.
best, yeah.
Soldiers Field Road,
Yeah,
Cambridge.
I used to go, I started volunteering public access TV in Boston in the 60s, when I went to 6 years of pharmacy school.
Really?
I actually had a original, like the Explorer Post. I worked with the guy who started the Explorers, he was in California. And the parents would actually give me their kids at 2 in the morning. They looked older than me.
I want to see a Glendora show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So, I do too. I missed them.
You mean the S.S.Glendora,
I
honey?
missed them all. So.
Yeah, we, in
You'd like to see one?
Yeah.
You want us to revise it for you, dear?
Okay.
You know, that's possible. That's possible because of public access. I have a studio. In fact, I could even do it in Pittsfield. I think I have that right in Pittsfield, right, honey?
what is it?
I could have their studio, their cameras, their control
Well,
room.
that's, remember in Pittsfield, because you got upset, I didn't know about it until you did the carousel event. And we have a thing, if you don't live in Pittsfield, you have to have a local producer, presenter.
And that's my
what
dear
I'm
Pat.
doing, that's what I'm doing. But I didn't know.
But our public access station is Bethlehem, New York, right outside of Albany. So I have that studio. Back in the days of WRGV, they owned everything. They owned
Yeah.
the studio, they owned the cameras, they owned the people. They owned everything.
Yeah.
But today, that's all been changed by public access. We have our own studio, we have our own cameras, we have our own control panel. And we could go and revise the S.S.Glendora. You wanna do it?
Greg? You still have the set
No,
and everything?
No, Mrs. Banker, do you wanna do it?
Oh,
Do what, honey?
You said you wanted to see one.
I do.
yeah.
We'll have to recreate it right here and now.
We'll do it.
We can do that.
What's your name, honey?
Have to have a
Bobby's here. Glendora.
Who's here?
Bobby.
Oh, Bobby, come over.
Froggy.
Get your,
Gotta
Get
gotta
your
have a
hat.
hug and a hat.
Gotta get a hug and a hat.
Yeah.
yeah.
Hey,
dear.
Bobby, you darling.
Hi, dear.
When I open, when I say all hands on deck, after that I'll say Reno, and then will you say Chief Mate Bobby Reno reporting from East Greenbush?
Okay.
And Wayne.
Yes, I have a
Oh, yeah. I
Just parked here, that's all.
need a
Wayne
piece of
Collins,
paper.
where is he?
No paper.
Here,
Right here. Will you do that?
Glendora, I'm right in front of you.
Okay.
Directly in
Will you
front
do
of
that, honey?
Yes.
And then Pat Teff, he's the one who asked the library to have this program. And he's an old fan of the S.S.Glendora, and he's the one who started this whole show tonight. And so he'll be a reporter. And then Gregory.
Oh,
Oh, Clark Nichols.
That's me.
Well, will you do it too, Clark? Because you were a viewer.
I was a viewer, but I don't remember very much.
Can you remember to say this is Chief Mate Clark Nichols reporting from Pittsfield, Massachusetts?
I don't. Guess I could try to
I think you can.
try to
handle that.
remember the line. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we gotta be sure, you don't want to
This is what?
This is Chief Mate
Chief Mate.
Clark Nichols,
Okay, I remember that name.
reporting from Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Okay.
No, you're from Lee, aren't you?
Well, Pittsfield's fine.
Okay.
That's where I was back then.
Yeah,
Of course, Lee would be easier to say.
Yeah.
he lives in both
Wayne,
places.
Wayne, do you wanna take a look at this quick, or this is it's like a page out of the
What time is it now, folks?
log there, and,
6:20.
captain's log.
Okay, 10 minutes
And,
will
It
start.
says the duties of a fleet.
I
shall
called you
captain.
people early because I wanted a chance to talk to you.
And,
Is there anything you want to say before we start, folks? Because we won't have much chance after.
Yeah, when are we starting?
Or forever hold your peace.
I didn't tell you about the little boy whose daddy was a minister? And every day he practiced some ministry function.
You need some paper?
And one day he was
That's
practicing
all
a
right.
funeral,
Let's,
and he had a little rolled up towel, make believe it was a body.
I'm just getting some.
And he was at the gravesite, and he said, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and in the Holy Ghost." So you people, what's that, honey?
oh, just to have some of the comments, have the comments
Oh
here.
yeah, I've got
about
them right here
show.
for you.
And, yeah, we have those.
I'll cue this up for you.
So hi, Bobby, so good to
So
see
any of you
Good to
people
see you.
from Pittsfield, anything you wanna talk about before we have to go to work?
Try to
What are we
try to
what are we
organize
gonna
as
be
best as I could
doing,
here, but-
Glendora?
What, dear?
What are we going to be doing? What are you doing? What is
At
going on?
6:30, we're having a reincarnation of the S.S.Glendora and Glendora Satellite 6. People who want to remember it, like my dear Bobbi Reno who just showed
Oh,
up.
thank you. Do we guys?
You could write on it.
I remember,
I got that too.
I wonder if that's.
but you were
Bobby
born
from
in
this.
No,
'63.
thank you.
Use the magazine as a.
She should
I
have
wish.
write in people that sign.
Oh, right.
4, 3, 2,
To go.
A chat with Glendora, a show for living right. A chat with Glendora makes your day so bright. Words of inspiration, jokes to make you smile. Come relax and chat with Glendora for a while.
That's the front desk for
Well,
some
here,
paper.
you can use, this is the Dewey Decimal System, but they can sign.
Yeah, we can do that. Or, well, yeah, so
Do you have a
I'll
pen?
take.
That's a good idea. Who suggested that? Clark Nichols?
Clark.
Okay.
Chief Mate Clark Nichols from Pittsfield.
Pass it around, would you, Greg?
All right, so.
Well,
the,
that was a good idea. Why, we have, viewers from as far as Beverly Hills and as far as, Salem, Oregon.
It's Pat. Now, is this Bobby from this letter here? Are you?
That looks like
Yeah,
it,
yeah, I was just reading it. I figured it must be. Very nice. Earl Pudney show.
There,
Yeah.
I remember Earl Pudney.
I remember.
Do you remember?
How about Howard Tupper and
Yeah.
years later? Yeah.
Or your
They
phone.
used to say it's small fry.
All right, so
Freddie Freihoffer, the letter. A lot of those people
Oh, I love
remember.
the Freddie Fryhoff.
Yeah,
They were good.
Do
Well-
you remember
local
Grant
shows.
Van Patten, Trader Van?
Yes,
Anybody remember Trader Van?
I do.
yeah.
Yeah, vaguely.
Freddie was
When there was the music in Stockbridge, all the people that worked, a lot of people came from the factory, Freihoffers.
Yeah.
So we regularly meet, and I suggested, don't you have seconds of the chocolate chip cookies? No, they weren't seconds, but they got them. And I still remember some of the musicians that loved those cookies that came from all over to perform. This would be around 1970s or early 70s or so.
When did it go off?
Go out in the later on in the
It was-
later
it was-
70s.
Yeah, close
Yeah.
to the 70s.
There's been reunions, and they're supposed to do another one.
What show was that?
This was the Music Inn, Stockbridge, right near
Oh.
Tanglewood.
Oh,
you
yes, the
know.
music in.
Yeah.
Is
It,
this
it was a exclusive restaurant these days, the Wheatley.
Oh, you
Wheatley.
got it listed. That's good.
Oh.
That's great. Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
Now I have a little just slideshow loop that I can put on that big screen, if you care to have that up there.
Okay. Take this out.
Okay, sure.
Does Bobby Reno have a fedora?
Do I have a fedora?
Yeah.
No, she don't.
Could you get a fedora, honey?
Huh? Do you want-
It's the only hats we have tonight.
Huh?
The only hats tonight. All right. All right, I'll get some of this here.
Is somebody over there take a picture for me?
I'm recording. I'm recording the
Let it
screen.
run. Could I have it on mine too, hon?
Yeah, I'll take it. So. All right. So. All right. Let me unplug it. So. All right.
Martha Hicks, I think. Or Martha Hicks Road. No, this was a different person.
This came all the way from Beverly Hills, California, Jimmy Talbot. Chief Mate Jimmy Talbot reporting from Beverly Hills, California.
Oh, these pictures are Bobby's pictures. Thank you.
Oh,
I
what's
put
the-
them on a little loop
Oh, okay.
so that we could look at them today. And
Okay.
then Bobby's
That's
or
good.
Mike on it? No. Oh, I don't know.
Here, hon.
I just ran
Who
into
you
the
were
name of the
speaking
Market
of, Glendora,
No,
we'll,
Hicks Farm,
we'll do a little later.
Transylvania Institute next door.
Oh, Jimmy Talbot.
Jimmy Talbot,
Yeah.
yeah.
They actually have a facility where you can go and do research.
Yeah, they moved back into the town hall.
Oh, they're out of the shopping center?
Yeah,
Yeah, there's some
was my.
lease issue.
And, once everyone gets here, you know, you can let me know when you wanna,
Arthur Pierce.
play Jim's
London Springs
video, okay?
doctor in 1880.
Thank you, dear Director of the Nassau Free Library,
He died of
Tracey
pneumonia.
Clague.
His wife died of pneumonia, but he died of
You're
pneumonia.
welcome.
Two
Tracy Collins
daughters
Clague.
went back over to Pittsfield to my great-great-grandpa.
Okay.
Wayne,
Anyway, good talking to you.
Wayne,
Try to get some
Yes,
video
I'm
here.
directly, I'm right in front of you.
Wayne, her middle name is,
Sign in?
her family name is Collins.
Oh, I caught that.
Yes.
They need
So when did your family come over?
Where's the sign in?
Oh,
Maybe we're connected somehow.
probably in the
Oh, maybe that's it.
something
Maybe that's it.
1880s or something.
This is,
And
Was
she
it
named her son
Edward?
Collins.
Was it Edward that
Do you like that?
was the one?
I don't remember that
Okay.
name.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Is it 6:30 yet, folks?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
barely.
it's 28 after, you got about
Okay.
2 minutes.
Ring the bell at 6:30,
clocks are
please.
He's coming down the stairs.
Ring the ship bell at 6:30. Clang,
guess.
clang, clang.
Glendora, new guest here.
I think we're getting a good record of
What,
this.
dear?
This is
my-
Alan.
Yeah, my name's Alan. I'm into,
Yeah.
do you know my grandmother? Her name was Laura Shields.
Say it again.
Laura Shields. She was, around this town a lot.
Laura Shields.
Wait a second, honey, I didn't get it.
Do you remember a lady called Laura Shields?
Laura Shield?
Yes.
I think so, yes.
That was my grandmother.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And you're here for her?
Well, I'm here actually just more interested in what this is about, actually.
Oh,
I
So,
heard about your, what was it, other programs or such.
oh, good. And what is your name?
Alan Brown.
Well, did you sign our paper, dear?
What paper?
Here, it's right here, it's coming.
Oh.
You gotta come up and get a hug.
Alright.
and then a hat. He's got a hat.
You have the hat. He's got the hat.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Make sure you sign our paper, will you?
I will.
And call me, anytime.
Have a
I
seat.
will.
Alan was just volunteering upstairs, Glendora.
Who is?
Alan
Oh,
was
okay.
just volunteering for
Is she
us.
from Nassau Village?
Yep.
Oh, good. Will you call me up? Get my number from Tracy?
Yeah.
Okay. The words of our mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. All hands on deck. Man your stations. Do your duties. Reno.
First mate, chief mate, Bobbi Reno from East Greenbush, reporting for duty.
Collins.
This is Chief Mate Wayne Collins reporting from Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Is Teft here? Patrick Teft. Chief Mate Patrick Teft.
He's missing.
They won't.
He's
Gregory Charles Washburn.
Gregory Charles Washburn from Poughkeepsie reporting for duty.
Not a first mate?
Not first mate. but-
Apparently not. Apparently he's just a deck swabber.
No, I'm just a swabbing the decks.
Now, is the chairman of the board of the Nassau Free Library present
Yes.
on deck? Do your duty, chairman.
Oh.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Nassau Free Library, we thank you all for coming. We have a friend and a neighbor with us tonight, and you know her better than I do. Glendora has been a regular at the library since she moved to Nassau. She has been a a very good financial supporter as well. And I'd like to think of her as a friend. I'm on one of her calling lists, so I too get telephone calls outrageously early in the morning, wanting to know how the cats are, how this is, how that is. But Glendora is truly a unique individual. I don't have to tell you that. And while some people may think she's a bit eccentric, I think she is just one of the most unique individuals I have ever met and have ever had the pleasure to speak with. She is very, very knowledgeable. She is amazing in the scope of information she has absorbed over the years, and is just a great person. And I'm thankful that you folks could be here with us tonight, because I know it means a great deal to her. So, on behalf of the library, we're so happy that you could be with us. It would have been nice if we could have been upstairs in the historic original 1840 building, but we're downstairs in our newly renovated community room because we have to see television, because Glendora is a absolute pioneer of early television, of children's television programming, and I think perhaps you may know or may not, a great defender of the public airwaves, and she has a tremendous story that took her all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't know if you know this, but she has been in the trenches fighting for us little people. So I've been given the task of reading a letter, and she's going to tell me when, and we also have a video clip. So Glendora, what would you like to do next?
Please read the report that Mr. Wayne Collins submitted.
I've gotten 2 cats for you.
Yes, she's a cat whisperer too. So this was a letter sent to the library on January 28th from Wayne Collins of Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Memories of S.S.Glendora. I would like to take the opportunity to share some of my memories of this 1950s television program, S.S.Glendora. This children's program aired on WRGB, Schenectady, Channel 6, beginning in the summer of 1955. It was replacing a program called The Friendly Fireman. My memory of the very first episode of S.S.Glendora is very clear, as it was different from all other programs I had ever viewed, and also because it began in a different manner from any subsequent airing of the show. On this first episode, the camera panned in on Glendora and her 3 chief mates, 3 guests standing on the deck of a ship, which was, of course, the SS Glendora. The guests were 2 boys and a girl. Glendora held a pair of binoculars and said, "The friendly fireman has left in his rowboat. Can you see him out there?" She then handed the binoculars to the first boy, who was obviously the smallest and youngest of the 3. He said, "No." She then handed the binoculars to the girl and asked if she could see him, and to which she answered, "No." When Glendora handed the other boy the binoculars and asked him if he could see the friendly fireman, he confidently replied, "Yep." Each evening, the guest crew members were dressed in uniforms. The boys wore black pants with a white shirt and a black necktie. The girls, black skirts with a white blouse and a black necktie. Each child was fitted with epaulets, and the uniform was topped with a sailor hat. The hats had an intriguing feature in that each had a card with signal flags stuck in over the visor. These flags were hand-painted by Glendora. And I think we have, is this one of them up here, Glendora, on the table? Gregory?
Yeah.
A little logo, there's some logos there.
Some of the logos on there, the nautical flags. On each program after the first, the opening was always the same, with a shot of a little ship labeled SS Glendora rocking back and forth on a cardboard ocean to the tune of the program's theme song, which was the Sailor's Hornpipe. The camera then went to the deck of the ship, where each child would come forward, salute, and say, "This is Chief Mate John Doe or Jane Doe, reporting from Schenectady, New York, Troy, New York, Pittsfield, Massachusetts, Dalton, Massachusetts, or wherever the case might have been. During the first few episodes, at the conclusion, one of the boys would announce, "All hands on board, return to your stations, back to your duties." This did not take place for the duration of the run. Eventually, the sign-off would be Glendora simply saying, "Smooth sailing."
Hey, good for you.
Oh, there's more. He has a very good memory. On the television screen, it really appeared as if they were standing on the deck of a real ship. The set was ingeniously designed and built by Uncle Jim Fisk of the Freddie Freihofer Bedtime Stories children's program. The first few nights, the guest crew members were repeat appearances who were children of WRGB employees. After the first few episodes, many children had written in to request making an appearance with Glendora. The guests were chosen by random drawings. It was later revealed that one boy had wanted so badly to be on the program that he had sent in 100 postcards. He was invited to the program and worked behind the scenes.
Jimmy Kelvin.
And Gregory is that boy, I think. S.S.Glendora was a 15-minute program which was done live, and there was a lot of entertainment packed into those 15 minutes. Each episode included a cartoon. These were Looney Tunes or Merry Melodies with such beloved cartoon characters as Bugs Bunny, Porky Pig, etc. The cartoons would have taken 3 or 4 minutes of airtime. Other activities might include Glendora seated at a small table demonstrating some trick or talking about one of her contests. For one contest, the first prize was an autograph from Perry Como.
Wow.
The second, third, and fourth prizes were carbon copies of the Perry Como autograph. The year was 1956, and this is the year that Perry Como had his hit record, Glendora. Glendora, the real one, was well aware of this recording, and I am sure that when any of her viewers in the viewing area heard the song, that they associated it with her. The young guests were always referred to as crew members, and very often Glendora would engage them in a quiz on a topic such as safety. When a question was answered correctly, Glendora would snip off a piece of her necktie and give it to a crew member who had provided the correct answer. On one particular episode, a boy had accumulated quite a pile of prizes, and Glendora asked him, "How are you going to get all of those home?" To which he replied, "In a car." She then responded, "I think you'll need a ditty bag, don't you?" The use of nautical terms pervaded the episodes, reinforcing the nautical theme of the program. Glendora created a fictional character named Mooney Moolah, which I learned today is aluminum spelled backwards. At the time, I thought that this girl was a real person. Every so often, Glendora would read a missive from Mooly Moona Hudson discussing such matters as a bee sting or some mischief in which she had been involved. There were no breaks for commercials. When a commercial for a product such as Cocoa Marsh drink was being presented, it was simply incorporated into the program. In one particular instance, several pairs of sneakers were hanging from the ropes. Glendora said to one of the boys, "You've spoiled our bunting," implying that he had tied the sneakers to the ropes. She then neatly modulated into the commercial for the sneakers, and the program continued. The program ran for about a year and a half, from the summer of 1955 until the fall of 1956. When the station decided to eliminate live programs. As the show was nearing the end of its run, one of the episodes showed a large treasure chest full of cards and letters sent in by children who had hoped to appear on the program, but would now be unable to have the opportunity to do so. It is estimated that well over 1,000 boys and girls actually appeared on the show with Glendora over the course of its run. Although I had never written in to be on the program, when I learned that it would be going off the air, I felt badly about it. It was like having a neighbor friend whose family would be moving out of town, so you would not see that friend again. So I wrote a letter requesting a picture to have as a keepsake of the happy time spent with Glendora. I still have that picture today, signed Smooth Sailing Glendora. Wow. On the final episode of the program, there was a segment where Glendora was portraying a character leading a meeting. This was a rare occurrence, as she usually was merely portraying herself. She was standing at a small lectern, which she kept pounding with a gavel. She was using a lorette to read something, and I don't know whether it was deliberate or not, but she pounded the lorette with the gavel and then proceeded to read with the cracked lorette. Now, lorette is a word that I have never seen in type before. So, of course, being a good library person, I Googled it. And a lorette is a pair of glasses that an upper class person would hold up to their face. There's no frames, it's just a glass with a stick on it. Sort of like opera glasses, I suppose, without the magnification. So very, very high class New England ladies like Glendora must have had those standing by. At the very end of the final broadcast, a visibly emotional Glendora said, "We will be going to another port, but there's no port like the first one, smooth sailing." This ended an all too short run for a program which was very unique, the likes of which we have never seen before, and it is most likely safe to say we will never see again. I hope these reminiscences bring to mind some happy memories for former viewers of S.S.Glendora and will create a picture of its essence in the minds of those who were not fortunate enough to have experienced it firsthand. Sincerely, Wayne Collins.
Yeah, folks, they called us all in. Can you remember? Imagine a room full of Earl Putney and Gary Stevens and the After 6-7 and Grant Van Patten and the cooking show host and the Freddie Fryhofer host. Oh no, they didn't fire Freddie Fryhofer because that was sponsored, right? They were getting money for that. And they called us all in. And Bill Mulvey, he was Bronco Bill, wasn't he? Bill Mulvey was Bronco Bill. Called us all in and fired us en masse. Because they thought the public wanted to see film. They didn't think the public wanted to see live. How wrong could they be, right? And a year and a half later, they realized their mistake and they called up and asked me to come back. Any comments on the what the chairman of the library board read to us? No, Chief Mate Bobbi Reno. Front and center. Tell us about your experiences.
Well, what I recall, what's that? Yeah, I can remember. Thank you. What I recall is, I started to watch Satellite 6. And I think that was the program that came on after the S.S.Glendora when they called you back. And I would say I was probably maybe 6 or 7, maybe when I started watching it, maybe 5, 6 or 7, around that age. And I think I was very much influenced at the time, but I didn't realize that I was. Because if you recall, most of the children's shows back then, local and even some of the national ones, were hosted by a man. Except for maybe Romper Room, or I remember Sherry Lewis with the puppets and stuff, but I think that was when I was getting a little bit too old for that. But most of it was men. You had George, I think his name was Lazat or something, he was the old skipper. You had Ralph Artigan on the Good Ship Popeye reading the news to the kids and stuff. Good shows, you know, and shows that I enjoyed. But then, here's this woman, she was hosting this children's show, and she was the captain of a spaceship. And I thought, this is pretty cool, and I really enjoyed, you know, the spaceship kind of theme from it and so forth. But I think I didn't realize what an influence it had on me until years later, when it was telling me back then that as a female, you can become a captain of a spaceship. that was normal, that was what she was. But unfortunately, even when I became of age, it was not yet that you could become a captain of a spaceship, not yet. It's coming to that point, and of course getting better. But I think that I was not alone in the influence of that from little girls watching this show and seeing a female, a woman, being the captain of her spaceship. And the Mooney Moolah followed you over there and did that, because I remember getting the phone calls from the Mooney Moolah and how she handled the Mooney Moolah and so forth like that. But I think that there was a lot of influence from young girls especially, and to young boys watching this at that time. And I sure hope Channel 6 recognizes, they probably had no idea that they were actually laying the foundation and groundwork for that influence. And I would like I would actually like to hear from Channel 6 saying that they recognized what they had done and how important it was. Because it was very important. So brushing it off as a children's show, no, it was more than that, much more than that. So that is my take from it. I enjoyed the show, but I was also influenced by it in a positive way.
What about Bosco, Bobbi?
Oh, my poor mother. She had to mix the Bosco the same way that Glendora did on the show, or else this was no good. No, do it like Glendora. You gotta be like Glendora. So she
Now, before we go on to Chief Mate Gregory Charles Washburn, is the director of the library present?
Yes, I am.
Director,
Yes.
could you kindly read us the report that came from Salem, Oregon, from Chief Mate Paul Martin?
Yes, I can. So I got an email from Paul Martin, and he said, Tracy, Glendora Buell contacted me to inform me that the library is honoring her and her groundbreaking TV shows. When I was 6 to 10 years old, I remember Glendora's show, S.S.Glendora and Satellite 6. But around 8 years old, my parents took me to Johnson Shoe Store in Mayfair Shopping Center to meet her. I remember her as friendly with a good sense of humor. She was, of sort, my TV mom. Within the past few years, I was able to contact her, and we became great buddies since. We exchanged corny jokes and reminisce about the 50s in Schenectady and some of the WRGB TV personalities. I view her as a national treasure and a very positive force. Thank you for honoring her. Paul Martin, Salem, Oregon.
Oh, thank you. He was 8 years old and he lived in Scotia. Do you know where Scotia is, folks? Yeah, it's right next to General Electric. In Schenectady, across the river, across the Mohawk River, which the kids used to
So I got an email from Paul. Yes.
Could you kindly read us the report that came from
I am.
Director,
Yes.
could you kindly read us the report that came from Salem, Oregon, from Chief Mate Paul Martin?
Yes, I can. So I got an email from Paul Martin, and he said, Tracey, Glendora Buell contacted me to inform me that the library is honoring her and her groundbreaking TV shows. When I was 6 to 10 years old, I remember Glendora's show, S.S.Glendora and Satellite 6. But around 8 years old, my parents took me to Johnson Shoe Store in Mayfair Shopping Center to meet her. I remember her as friendly with a good sense of humor. She was, of sort, my TV mom. Within the past few years, I was able to contact her, and we became great buddies since. We exchange corny jokes and reminisce about the 50s in Schenectady and some of the WRGB TV personalities. I view her as a national treasure and a very positive force. Thank you for honoring her. Paul Martin, Salem, Oregon.
Oh, thank you. He was 8 years old and he lived in Scotia. Do you know where Scotia is, folks? Yeah, it's right next to General Electric. In Schenectady, across the river, across the Mohawk River, which the kids used to call the Schmohawk River. And he became a music teacher out in Oregon, and that's been his career. And he's been in touch ever since. Isn't it something? Isn't it something, folks, how for 60 years, something like that lives in a person's heart? Since you were 6 or 7 or 8 years old, and now you're 68, and you're still having as much fun with it as you were when you were a kid. Isn't it something? Now, Mr. Gregory Charles Washburn has some statements that he's taken off of it. It comes in every day. Somebody on the internet, Facebook, or Twitter, or YouTube. Here's your,
Okay.
here are your comments, Greg.
Yeah, these are just some of the comments of Glendora's show from the viewers. And it's just press play. It's ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll have to
Aye, aye.
It's live
okay.
You see all the mistakes.
Yeah, it might be a little bit hard to hear, but
Well,
I'll
I would
play it
play
for
the
you.
comment and then repeat it and ask the folks
yeah,
if
we'll
they
play
heard it.
that. So.
And thank you, Bobbi. And thank you, Bobbi, for inviting Glendora to your talk about another remarkable, groundbreaking person who happens to be a woman, Edmonia Lewis. I hope our local schools are sharing their history and contribution to our community's children. Well.
Did you hear it, folks?
And he exclaims aloud, W-O-W.
Okay, why don't you tell them, honey?
And he's talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Why don't you tell them what it said,
Oh,
in your own words?
it's comments from.
She said, thank you, Bobbi, for having Glendora.
Yeah, thank you for having at your talk and your Edmonia Lewis talk at the town hall. I guess
Yeah,
that was, and we went to that, and Glendora attended that, and I guess there was another person there that recognized Glendora, and we have these comments there. They sent these comments in about that, and then there's other brief written ones here I can read off quick.
Can you all hear Gregory?
And so, but it's some of the recording is a little bit rough, but I'll still play it back.
W-O-W exclamation mark. And he's talking about the Bobbi Reno talk and about Edmonia Lewis. And talking about the S.S.Glendora. Yeah, S.S.Glendora. Yes, we were commented
got the paper and read the comments.
Yeah,
And while you do that, I'll ask Chief Mate, Wayne Collins to step forward.
yeah, I read the papers right now.
Yeah, go get the paper, you got the papers right
Yeah,
here?
they're right here, so.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so, okay, well, moving right along.
Thanks, Wayne.
Make it good job. Splash, splash.
So I'm gonna I'll read some of the comments here from, about Glendora here. It says, from a man named Chip Peretta here, he wrote in, it says, I still insist that your show back in 1956, 57 was the best. Thanks for all the memories. And then there's let's go on down here, there's Stephen Thompson wrote, it says, I used to watch this show in the late 50s, seems so long ago. And some of these comments are from 2015, these are a number of years old, and some of these comments we have, but I'm gonna keep going on here, we got that, and I'm gonna read that. There's one here, it says, it is nothing, from Stephen Thompson, it is nothing short of extraordinary that Glendora continues on. I remember fondly, of course, her TV show on Channel 6 in the late 1950s, he wrote. And this one here, let's see, okay. This says here, I was from Joan Lizette, right? So I was on this show when I was in 4th grade. I had 2 lines, my salute and sign in line, Joan Lizette reporting from Hudson, New York. And during a Maypo commercial, he wants his Maypo. And then, move it along here, so I'll go through these pretty quick. So, and these are, it says here, Glendora, I have this is from Tony Gleason wrote as a comment. This is in 2014. Glendora, I have vivid memories of your show on WRGB in Schenectady. When I was a kid, my older brother Paul and his friends, who were teenagers in high school at the time, once played a prank and all signed up to appear on your show. They were easily by far the oldest kids who ever were guests. I bet you met the show with great humor and introduced it by saying to the kids in the TV audience, we've got a group on today that are old enough to be your grandfathers. And it says, another comment from Melanie Roberts. I remember when you came to our school, Glen Warden, Scotia, late 50s. I wrote about it in a letter to my grandmother that she kept and we just found. We tried to figure out who, what S.S.Glendora was and have finally solved the mystery. Thanks for being you, Glendora, she signs. And, okay. And then there's one from Bobbi Reno. This is back in,
From Bobbi Reno?
It says, this is January 2013, that's like a couple of years ago.
6 years ago.
It says, oh, hi Glendora, this is Bobbi. I met you today at the East Greenbush Library. So happy to meet you. As I told you, I always watched you on Satellite 6, I said.
I remember Bobbi Reno.
Then there's another comment from Heather Cahill. Congratulations on your 40th year in television. Thanks for the jokes. And it says here, public access is the best, it says.
I remember one came from a boy, and he says, my father, you talked to my father, and you helped us find our dog. Apparently the dog was lost. And so I was a forerunner of Steve, what's his name, on Channel 6?
Steve Caparizzo.
No, Channel 10,
Yeah.
right, who finds it, who helps the animals, right?
That's what I said. I got 2 cats from you that you had on the show.
Well, thank you, Wayne, thank you, Greg, is that it?
Oh, no, there's like a multitude of comments here, but I'm not, won't go on all
Okay.
night, but This is here, as a child, this is from Glendora Tessier, it says, January 2012. As a child, I watched you all the time. I thought that it was great that our names were the same. It says you wrote me a letter once, but unfortunately it got lost. Just wanted to say that I have very fond memories of you and your program. And
Her name was Glendora.
her name was Glendora too.
Oh.
And here's a comment from Susan Evans. This is from 2011. I remember when you were on Satellite 6, my brother and I were big fans and eventually came to visit you on the set. We got to know you and your mom. You both came over for dinner several times at my grandparents' home. There was an outdoor barbecue one time, and I remember you calling my grandfather the old hay kicker. Your intelligence, humor, and kindness were an inspiration to me then, and were part of the reason I became the person I am today.
Wow.
Interested in some photos from back then? Question mark. It says signed Tommy, parentheses Buster, and Susan Knapp. It says, and here's another one from a comment from Jack Phelan. Wow, to find you still around and active. Satellite 6 was my favorite program, along with Sky King. I made my Nana bring me to one of your supermarket openings. Boy, was I a happy kid meeting you. I think I still have the picture you gave me. I also remember loving your voice. Take good care, and thanks for the good times, signed Jack.
Oh, that's sweet.
And there's another comment from Leighton Monroe Reed Nickerson. It states, I'm 66, and for the last 50-something years, I've had memories of watching the S.S.Glendora on WMUR TV in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Manchester, New Hampshire.
I worked at WMUR in 1964, and people I worked with remembered Glendora, but I never could get any more information. Today I crossed another item off my bucket list. I found Glendora. Where am I now? In Burns, Oregon, where my wife and I own and operate the local radio stations. Thanks, Glendora. Thanks for the memories. It signs.
That's good. And Jimmy Talbot, you know, that was his career. He started out at 8 years old, behind the scenes. And I always treated him like an adult. I always treated all of them like an adult. And Jimmy, that started him out on his career at 8 years old. And he's in Beverly Hills now as a screenwriter.
Here's
Is that enough of those?
Sure, just one more. There's a quick one from Rosemary Podbielski. It says, what memories, exclamation mark. I was a huge fan of Glendora on WRGB. All I wanted for Christmas one year was a Glendora suit. It says, I did not get the costume, but I did get wonderful memories. Signed, thanks, Glendora.
What was her name, dear?
It says Rosemary Podbielski. It says that's from 2010.
I'm sorry that our dear friend Charles Garibaldi from Pittsfield isn't here tonight. He doesn't feel good, but he's somebody that you would love, folks. And Wayne, you know, he goes on and on. That's like the minister in the church. He went on and on and on. And on and on and on and on and on. And the little girl whispered in her mother's ear, do you suppose if we give him the money now, he'll let us go? Chief Mate Wayne Collins, can you tell them about the Hona Melodica?
Yes, you were advertising the Honer Melodica. This was on Satellite 6, and one night you dropped it. It was either on the floor or hit it on the console. You picked it up and you said, you're out of luck, folks, it's not broken. Because you used to play it.
Any other things, Wayne, that we covered in our TV interview that the folks might like?
Well, they might like to cover the idea that you were instilling some moral values on the S.S.Glendora.
Definitely.
And you had a list, duties of a fleet ship captain. And I have a copy of that here with me tonight,
Yes, please,
if you'd like me to read
yeah.
the duties of a fleet ship captain. It would be to do good and avoid evil, to be obedient to our parents and respectful and courteous to all, to do unto others as we would have them do unto us, to be loyal and faithful to God and country, to be serious and call a meeting with your fleet ship members, to watch activities aboard the lead ship S.S.Glendora every Saturday morning at 8:30 WBZ-TV Boston, and to see that your crew members do the same, to lead your fleet ship crew members in activities of your weekly meetings, and to write a report to your skipper once, I don't know if it was once a week or a month, this part was cut off, but it was things like this. And I remember one time, and I believe that was on Satellite 6, when you asked your young viewers to all do you a favor and read the first chapter of their Bibles.
No, really?
Yes.
Hey, you couldn't say that today, could you?
Very likely not.
Is that so?
Very
Tell me.
much not, no.
No, tell me, is that true? I couldn't say that today?
I don't know.
That is true, you cannot.
On public access TV, you can.
That's
Yeah.
How did you get started doing this, Glendora?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a very interesting question. Wayne, did you finish, dear?
Well, I always have more than I remember, but it's likely one of the reasons I remember the show today is because of the nautical terms, the nautical theme of the program. From the first broadcast right up until the last, it was full of these nautical references. For example, when you asked the boy who had won all of the giveaways if he would like a ditty bag, or at the end when one of the boys would say, "All hands on board, return to your stations, back to your duties." These were all
Nice.
things I remember. And it was like a club on the S.S.Glendora, and the crew members were members of the club. And I always remember what a big thing it was for me to get that autograph picture from you, that you actually took the time and actually handled the picture and wrote my name on it, Smooth Sailing Glendora. And I had that on display for a long time, and I still have the picture.
Good. Any others, Wayne?
Oh, the sailor's hornpipe, whenever I hear that song, I can see that little ship rocking back and forth on the cardboard ocean. And, there's so many different things. I think of the cartoons and the way you presented them, and, let's see, one night, one of the prizes for a contest would have been a stack of 45 records, and I remember you saying, and they're all good labels. I remember that specifically. Once in a while you'd make a personal reference to your husband or your brother Ralphie, or you'd say something about your mother. Not very often, but sometimes you'd make a personal family reference like that. And
Isn't
as
he
I
wonderful?
said in my report, you must have had well over 1,000 children appearing with you on the show. And it really did seem like you were on the deck of a ship. And on the television screen, it appeared to be much larger than it probably actually was. But it really did seem like you were on a ship.
That's right. If you weighed 130 pounds, you look like 140. Yeah, TV would add weight very quickly, yeah.
And it was interesting too how you do the commercials, that they just would blend right into the show, because you didn't break for the commercials, you did them live, and if you made a mistake and spilled the popcorn on the floor, well, so it happened, and you just keep going. And
Well, Jimmy Talbot, you know what Bosco is? He dropped it on the floor and chocolate syrup went all over the studio floor. And here you have these cameras on dollies on wheels.
and it was
He was really not very popular with the floor crew. Anything else, dear Wayne?
Well, it was sad when you went going off the air with that show, and you said we'll be sailing to another port, but there's no port like the first one. But you've been to other ports since then, and you're still going strong, and for that we're all thankful.
Yes. Oh. How how about getting started? Well, when I was 23, I was like so many people you know, 23, amorphous, like an amoeba, no shape, no goal, no definite, no motivation. And finally, thanks to our dear God, I sat down with pen and paper and said, what is it supposed to be done with this lifetime? And it came up television. And no matter how I looked at it, it was television. And it wasn't television behind the scenes, folks. It was television on camera. Extremely difficult goal, right? Well, I tried to get out of it, and I tried to run away, but there was no peace, and I went to Hollywood, and I became a mimeograph operator. Does anybody remember mimeograph machines?
Oh, yeah.
And I became a mimeograph machine operator in the NBC television. This is NBC, Hollywood and Vine. The heart, if it has a heart, of the whole television business. Because RCA was a leader, way ahead. ABC hadn't started yet. ABC was a spin-off by the Federal Trade Commission, saying that NBC couldn't have a red network and a blue network. They had to have one network. Well, I met all the crew for Dragnet. Do you remember Dragnet, Jack Webb?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Yes.
I met all of that crew. Beautiful, beautiful people. They said, here, take these script changes up to Studio A right away. And as I was going up the landing, there was a canteen machine. Do you remember canteen machines? Nickel candy bars? Nobody?
Yeah.
And this man was kicking the canteen machine. And he says, I put my nickel in there and I didn't get it. And that was Robert Young.
Oh.
He was there to do Father Knows Best radio.
Radio.
He was very nice. And he was interested in all kinds of people. I was standing at the artist's entrance one night, and with my back faced to the outdoors and NBC behind me, and a man came out and stood beside me, and he said, how are you tonight? That was Groucho Marx. And he was there doing You Bet Your Life. Well, that's the way it went. And I was starting out as a performer, and I realized that I didn't have the experience. And Hollywood is not a place to go if you don't have the experience, right? You're through in a hurry. So I said, I will go to a little small town, and I will go on television, I'll get the experience. And who was that, everybody? Who was it? What was the little small town I went to?
Schenectady.
What?
Schenectady.
Pittsfield, Mass.
There you are!
Oh,
Who said it?
Pat.
There, good for you, Pat.
Chief Mate Pat Gormalley from Pittsfield.
And that's when I started Glendora in a picture party. And I took it under my arm. My folks and I lived in Springfield, Mass. at the time. Pittsfield's only 50 miles. And I went up into that cold, cold place. And I showed them my program. And they said, well, we'd love to do it, but we're having trouble with our transmitter on Mount Greylock. The wind keeps blowing it down. But would you like to be a script writer? Would you like to write commercials? So I went to work for them, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, commuting on the weekend from Springfield. And the salesman there, he went out and he sold that show and got a sponsor for it. And they paid money for it. And I believe they even paid me. In addition to my salary. I think they even paid me. Well, I learned a very important point. If you want to be on television, you go out and get somebody to pay for it. Then the TV stations will listen to you, right? Because they get the income, right? Well, that show was 15 minutes a week. and it was on VHS. Anybody, excuse me, UHS. Anybody remember what UHF, ultra high frequency, was? Channel 74? Well, poor Leon Podolsky, he had poured his heart and soul and all of his life savings. He was a consultant for Adams Electric in something electric in North Adams. Does anybody remember?
Spray.
Yes, Spray. And we were on the second floor of 8 Bank Row, where WBRK used to be. They used to have radio shows and audiences back in the good old days of radio. Well, it flopped. He lost all of his money. The name of the station was WMGT, Mount Greylock Television. And it just flopped, folks. Well, in the meantime, it all came from above. I mean, I do not take any credit for any of this. Came this idea of a ship, and children on the ship, and running the ship. And that was the good thing about the S.S.Glendora. Those children ran that show. They produced it. They were the talent in it. They were everything. They were the producers of that show. And so I took that under my arm and went off to Manchester, New Hampshire, and sold that for 45 minutes a day, Monday through Friday. And that was so sweet. Those kids, oh, that was so sweet. And then after that, I showed them the success of the show in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I went all around trying to find a sponsor for it. And in Hartford, Connecticut, I found a man. He says, "Can I keep your books? Can you loan me your books?" And I went back the next week. "No, can I keep your books a little longer?" When I went back the next week, and the next week, and next week, and finally he says, "I want you to go with me to the Milton Bradley Company," which was in Springfield, Massachusetts. And we met with the president of that company, James Shea. And he bought the show and put it on prestigious WBZ-TV, Channel 4, Boston, Westinghouse. This dominated New England, right, Pat?
Yes.
So that, and then I took it to, Milton Bradley makes their money at Christmas time, right? Christmas presents, go to the head of the class, and, all those games, Magic Mary. You make your money when you're in the game business at Christmas. So when Christmas was over, he couldn't afford to advertise a very expensive package. He couldn't afford to advertise a year round. So I take it under my arm again. I go to Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and I go to Schenectady. And I showed it to Al Zink, the program manager. And he was sort of interested. And then I showed it to him again. And then I brought up a bunch of kids in the car with my mother. And we went up and we did a live show to show them what a great show this was. Well, I guess that somehow or other, the Friendly Firemen and WRGB had an altercation, okay, about something, and the Friendly Fireman was let go rather quickly, and Al Zink, "Can you start this show Monday?" Well, I did, and Jim Fisk, who's a genius, Jim Fisk is a genius artist, and he made that set. And we had to scout around for kids. I had no kids. And so I think the employees, some of their children. And that's we put on the first show. And Wayne remembers it. Did that answer your question, honey?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, do we want to throw anybody overboard? made that set. And we had to scout around for kids. I had no kids. And so I think the employees, some of their children. And that's we put on the first show. And Wayne remembers it. Did that answer your question, honey?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, do we want to throw anybody overboard? I can teach you how to do it. Chief Mate Clark Nichols from Pittsfield, you take the heels, okay?
Okay.
And Chief Mate Washburn, you take the shoulders and just go like this and swing and splash, that's the end of it.
I'm late, you can use me.
Oh, yeah.
All right, folks, time for your output. Let us be quiet, let us hear from you. You ask, what is the phenomenon? The phenomenon is people carry this in their hearts for 60 years. Don't you think that's something? They carry that love and that excitement and that good time. Coming home from school, putting away all their school things, taking off their school clothes, putting on their play clothes, and then their mother would let them sit down and watch TV. And they remember that. 60 years. They're 68 years old. And they're still thinking of it, as the comments that Gregory read us. Anybody else have anything to say?
What did you do to when you went to the Supreme Court? What did that involve?
Which time, honey? Oh, you see, NBC, ABC, CBS, it's all wrong. These airwaves, television, radio, all belong to the public. It is wrong for them to take the airwaves away from us and say, you can't be on television. These airwaves belong to us, and make billions. That is wrong. So when public access came in, finally Congress, give them credit, said the public must have access to TV, and that was the birth of public access TV. At last, we were to have channels. Well, now cable operators didn't like this because they could sell the channel. You know, they could sell it to arts and entertainment. They could sell it and make money off of it, right? They didn't want to give a channel to what you call PEG, public access TV, educational TV, and government TV. That's called PEG. They didn't want to do it. And they tried to get rid of us. And so I sued them. They took a chat with Glendora off the TV in Long Island. And they called me up the night that they took it off. It was going to go off forever in four hours. And they said, we don't think that public access is the place for you to talk about a lawsuit, a personal lawsuit. Well, I recorded it. And there is a strict law. Federal, state, and municipal. You cannot exercise editorial control over public access TV. We had them, didn't we? Yes. We had them. It's Title 47, United States Code, Section 525. No, that's the law, 535E. You cannot exercise editorial control over public access because, you see, we are a public forum. Just like on the sidewalks, you can't go up to somebody in Nassau or in Pittsfield and say you can't say that. Unless there's three exceptions. I mean, there's three things that are not constitutionally protected. We won't get into those. But you just can't do that. So we had them. And we took them all over the place. We took them to State Supreme Court, New York State Supreme Court. We took them to the federal court. We took them to the U.S. Court of Appeals, and finally we took them to the United States Supreme Court. That majorly was the cases there. But that's way ahead of the S.S.Glendora. Anybody else?
Well, I may not have been alive during that time, but I sure wish I was. I look fondly upon generations that I didn't even live through because of the simplicity as a whole, and how public access was a thing, and how public access was actually used and was a beneficiary to society as a whole. But now it's dead, and it's been taken over and ruined by Big Gov. Now, where all we have left is C-SPAN or C-SPAN now for public local television now. Although I wish I was around, I'm glad that you're still kicking rocks and having lots of fun out in the world. Even from 1956, which is a time that I want to be around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do have one question. Did you ever get to see Led Zeppelin play? Live?
What did you say, Greg?
Oh, did you see Led Zeppelin play? It's a band.
No, I still didn't hear it, folks.
Did you ever get to see Led Zeppelin play?
No, that was.
No.
The band, Led Zeppelin.
No.
No, I don't think she.
Why did you think I might?
I don't think she was into
Why
that.
did you think I might?
I don't know. It was just something.
No.
From 1963, actually. It started.
Because they built a stairway to heaven.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I wish I was around then. There was a lot of things I hold dear now that people in my generation don't. I interact with folk like over here in this generation more than I do in my own.
Exactly.
Now that's a problem, but not to me actually. I find enjoyment out of gems like Glendora, local gems that you just need to search for, put effort in, and then you get effort back into your heart. We don't have that anymore, but sure as hell you can look at it.
In Schenectady, we had a sponsor named Junior Bootery,
Yeah.
and he was giving away lollipops. If the children would come in and buy shoes from him. And he says, all the time Glendora's doing my commercial, I want her to be eating a lollipop. And I was around with a lollipop, and I had the lavalier microphone, and I was around talking to the children. And a kid was just about to knock over the flat. And so I gave him the evil eye, and when I came back, I put the microphone in my mouth instead of the lollipop. And I was wearing a gold bridge. That's what people heard in their living room that night.
What tasted better? What tasted better?
Which tasted better, you want to know. And WRGB, as I say now, we have no videos of these because it didn't come out until late '62. And they decided to tape the satellite the Glendora Satellite 6, and I think it was around 5:15 to 6 o'clock, and they made so many mistakes that by the time they finished taping it, I could have gone on live. But anyway, I was walking home from the WRGB studios on Balltown Road, and kids were playing on the sidewalk, and I was coming down the sidewalk, and the children are playing here, and the mother opens the door and says, "Billy, Glendora's on," and he says, "I'm not going to watch that stupid show." He turned around, and who was walking down? And one time they taped it, and I lived in Buffalo at the time, and I would commute Friday nights, Monday morning, and a little boy came into Freddie Freihopper, and he went up to Mae Dunn, the General Electric receptionist, and the program had been taped, and I left early. I was already on the train, and the little boy came running up all excited. "Can I see Glendora?" And May Dunn says, "I'm sorry, Glendora isn't live today."
I have a question.
She said the expression that came over his face. And I remember where we lived in, on Palma Avenue in Schenectady. Anybody here from Schenectady? The Fraunhofer man used to come around in a truck. They used to go
No,
door
horse
to
and
door.
wagon.
Yeah. And this Fraunhofer, my mother was very gullible, and she'd just buy from anybody who went door to door. She would buy. And he went away so happy that he had such a big order. And he goes to pull the door shut, and the doorknob came off in his hand. Anybody else?
Yes, yes. I have a joke. I have a real big joke for you, Glendora. Was the good ship Lollipop your enemy?
No, but I would say the good ship Popeye was.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I've got a little story to answer that question. When we first met, she looked at me and she said, "You're just the right age. You must remember the S.S.Glendora." And I said, "No, I was a Captain Kangaroo kid." And immediately, that was the wrong thing to say, Captain Kangaroo.
Yeah, Captain Kangaroo.
So, you wanna know how much money I made?
Absolutely.
Reporting to WRGB for 45 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
What was your salary?
Now, this is between 1955 and 1962. I remembered, I asked you, what was considered a good salary? Was $100 considered a good salary? $3.75.
$375, not $3.
$375. $375.
Now, Tracey has got some video. I don't know.
What'd you say, Kirt?
Tracey has some video queued up that we can play on the television behind you. And we do have to keep in mind that 8 o'clock is our closing time here, so we don't want to not see you on the TV. Tracy has a video.
Glendora, do you want me to play the video from Jim Talbot?
You did play, didn't you?
No.
No.
What did you like to do over there, Tracy?
No, this is just a rotating slideshow of Bobbi's pictures.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. Want to do it now,
Okay.
dear?
I'd love to. I just have to change up my technology here.
It's such a crazy thing how technology's advanced so much, hasn't it?
It's hard.
I actually have a record player. I love my old.
And this is about 2 minutes.
When I was about 10, after school 3 days a week, instead of suiting up for the football team, I took the bus downtown to volunteer at the very first television station on the air, WRGB, owned by General Electric, where my dad worked for the Flight Test Center. I worked on a show called the S.S.Glendora, a children's participation show, a staple of local TV in the 50s. Glendora had worked at NBC in Hollywood as a script girl, which is how she met Bob O, who would later tell jokes to a studio audience
she lives a low-pressure life in upstate New York, is host of A Chat with Glendora, a public access TV where she's broadcast over 10,000 shows in the past 40 years.
Folks, please welcome the happiness lady, Glendora. Where are you from, Glendora? Where does this show take place? Where can people see this?
Oh, the Chat with Glendora?
Yeah.
You can see this on Manhattan Cable TV.
And how many years have you been on the air?
Well, I've been on television 35 years, but that show's been on a year and 3 quarters.
Are you hoping that this particular show will maybe grow, perhaps expand, maybe get to a network status or a local TV station or something?
Well, I sort of doubt that.
You don't think that'll happen?
I was so taken with television back then, I built a faux TV station in the basement of our house, made of wood cameras, and I called it WJGT for the initials of my name. Here I am doing a commercial to my vast audience.
Is that it?
So that's it, yeah?
Thank you, Tracy. Folks, you notice how Channel 6 now is burying the name WRGB?
Mm-hmm.
They don't call it WRGB. You want to know something? Do you know that WRGB was a real person? Pat, did you know that WRGB was a real person? There was a vice president of General Electric during the early 50s named Walter R.G. Baker. And now they want to bury that name. You have no idea the prestige of WRGB in the 1950s. All over the country. It was the flagship station of the General Electric Company. It was the pioneer. They started on TV in 1928. In 1938, they sent a signal from Proctor's Theater to the fairgrounds in Queens. Flushing, wasn't that?
Yeah.
Was that the fairgrounds in 1938?
Mhm.
And what did they use as a signal? This was radio with pictures, folks. 1938, just before the war. Radio with pictures. And what did they use for a signal? Felix the cat. Because it was black and white and well delineated. Any other folks, any other things you want to go? What time is it, everybody?
7:35, maybe?
What is it?
7:35.
What?
7:35.
Hey, isn't the library closing at 8?
Yes.
Oh,
And we have special
Director,
requests.
tell us what to do.
Well, let me just say a little bit more of Glendora. It's Kirt. So, perhaps you know, Glendora is a great advocate of veganism. And she has gatherings here in Nassau where she shares all sorts of vegan food for people who have never had it and gives them an opportunity to try it. And in your honor, tonight we have vegan refreshments, Glendora.
Oh.
Tracy went to Honest Weight to get a special little cookie so that you would feel at home.
Thank you.
And I only had to remind her once, but she was already going to do it. So we're well attuned to your dietary needs. And Glendora is the only person I know who also has a vegan cat. So she says, if I'm vegan, that cat's going to be vegan too. And that's a true story.
What is the cat's name?
.com. How did you get that name?
It just seemed to fit her.
Do you call her Dot for short?
Well, listen, folks, can we thank the library? And can we thank Patrick Tech for starting this?
Yeah, where is it?
Glendora,
Tell us.
Pat, does everyone watch her current shows on public access?
Excuse
Well,
me.
we have it on in Pittsfield the last couple of years. I presented, producer, whatever.
Is
She
that-
actually does all the work with Greg. And, so you can watch it on, line at pittsfieldtv.org.
That you can also see on Facebook, her
Yes,
commercials and
yes,
so
yes,
forth, yeah.
yes,
Community
yeah.
TV.
So, and then you just look under
Yeah.
Chat with Glendora.
Yeah.
She's on YouTube as well.
And I'm sure wherever you have a public access station, she's throughout the, what number? It's since 1972 on.
We're on 73 TV
Yeah,
stations,
that's right, but
from
since
Boston to
1972.
San Diego.
The most of anyone in the whole world.
Yeah,
But you can get it on demand at PCTV.
Yes, yes. Pittsfield TV.
yeah, you can, a lot of them do it on demand. The bigger stations, Manhattan, Bronx, San Francisco, San Jose, they all do it on demand.
However, the FCC, as Glendora, has done a great program lately on it. They're gonna allow cable companies who have contracts with cities and towns to charge back in-kind services at whatever and that means you may have a contract and we have this money to do public access television, but they can come back now and could charge back everything you get to put that on, so they're gonna make a decision soon on that.
To send Glendora back to
So
the
send
Supreme Court.
send something to that chair, yeah, that's right,
Well, I'm
we'll have to appeal.
I would say those are thieves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they're everywhere now. America's a lot more corporate than it was before.
Yes, that's true.
Like Channel 6, who owns a corporation now.
And I'm brewed in it. I was born in it. I was
Channel 6 is the one
marinated in
that's
the
on,
corporations.
Yeah,
I don't wanna be.
they own.
I'm much more happier in
How
1970s.
many people came tonight? How many people are here?
15, maybe?
Very good.
Excuse me, Glendora, it's Maxine. Hi, it's a pleasure to be here and to add a testimony to your remarkable achievement. I just thank you so much for all you have done for the children and for giving us a wonderful show to remember. And I want to thank our young friend. I'm glad that you appreciate the golden age of television. I have watched TV and studied TV and pursued a master's degree in radio and television, and I can tell you that I still watch all the old shows that I watched when I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old. Lucy, and I do remember Dragnet, the first Dragnet and the second Dragnet, and I think they did a third Dragnet. I just wanted to clarify one point. The FCC is, in fact, I would guess, considering the way things are going, trying to establish a precedent, change the law so that they basically pay what they want rather than allow the communities, every municipality, city, town that broadcasts our cable stations, our service, must pay our communities the right to broadcast because they make millions of dollars. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation now. And they are saying, oh, we're gonna pay what we want. So I think we should all pay what we want for our cable, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, that's why I don't have cable. I actually don't.
Exactly,
I don't. I have satellite.
exactly.
And I also use the online, but FCC actually was trying to go after the internet last year.
They're still going after it.
Well, no, they can't because they've already lost the court case. They can't any further.
Can they
And
appeal?
the chairman also was investigated on for tax fraud evasion.
Oh, what a surprise.
What a surprise! I know, and I don't believe that the FCC is in the private sector. I think it's government subsidized.
It is?
Excuse me, what?
I don't think it's in the private sector. I think FCC is actually government subsidized, which is scary because if they take control of our entertainment, well, what's leaving, government sucks at everything, so, in my opinion. So what's stopping them from polluting our entertainment?
There isn't anything stopping, and that's the FTC and the FCC and the FTC are, the chairmen of which are directly appointed by the President of the United States. So that's the top, and that's where we need to go, but we should start with our communities and remind them that we don't want to allow free access and no payment and allow them to decide what they want to pay, because if they can decide, I mean, they're corporations and they're individuals too. So if they're corporations, they have rights as corporations, individuals, we should have rights to decide to pay what we think it's worth, or not have cable at all. Thank you.
Director, chairman
Yes.
of the board, what do we do now?
Well, if you'd all like to have some refreshments and maybe look at the beautiful pictures that Glendora has brought. Does that sound good, Glendora?
Yes.
But let's give a round of applause to Glendora.
To God be the glory, not to one person, folks. It was everybody.
God put you on this earth for a reason.
Exactly.
Okay. Now we should check in our hats for
In my high school years, I was a member of Junior Achievement. In my Junior Achievement Company was one year was a radio, WBEC in Pittsfield, sponsored a company, and we put on a radio show. And similar to what you do, inspiring children to carry on TV careers. We stimulated a lot of my compatriots to become, they went into the radio business, voiceovers, all sorts of, related to radio engineers. They were engineers of radio stations. It's a good
Hawaii.
Maybe they can give you points to fly there for free.
Yeah, I know.
Hey, we're gonna say goodbye.
How many of you are going to Pittsfield?
Three.
The three of you.
Yes, plug along.
Where's my baby girl?
And the only time I hear anything about it is going to Jim Ortell's.
Isn't it wonderful that we meet again?
Well,
And we'll be
Keith and Dan stopped by, you know.
We'll be talking soon.
Yeah, thank you
I
so
was
much.
in Hawaii for a couple of weeks and I went to two museums.
Yeah, thank you.
And one did the same thing I'm going to say here. These should not be out like this. You should have copies. Keep the original. We went to a little coffee plantation museum and they had original photographs of
So terribly.
and fell asleep to I told them, I said, well, we're getting a grant, would you like a job here? I couldn't pay to live here, you know.
I was so concerned.
Then I went to the Tsunami Museum.
Glendora has to
and
know.
then